All right guys, so today we're gonna check out what I think is a very interesting pair of in-ear monitors, and it's from the company Revo Next, and it's the NEX 202. They come in at $48 if you wanna get the version without the microphone, or it's just $50 for the pair that does have the microphone. Now the things that I think are very interesting about this, to start with, is it has two drivers. One is a 12mm titanium composite dynamic driver. So a 12mm dynamic driver handling just the bass, where it also comes with a balanced armature driver that's handling your mids and your highs. So it's gonna give you that really nice separation. The very interesting thing about these though, is they act as though they're like open back. I noticed in the design it had these little port holes on the outside, and I thought it was just for design. And when I got them in and I tested them, they are clearly letting airflow come out. So it's more or less acting as a bass reflex port more than like an open back allowing sound to just escape. But they do leak a lot of sound, and they do have that sound presence of an open back pair of headphones. Before we get into all that, let's go ahead and check out what all comes inside the box. It does come with your small, medium, and large silicone ear tips, but it also comes with two pairs of foam ear tips as well for people that prefer those. The body on the earbuds themselves is an aluminum housing. It is extremely well built, and the fact that they could keep these so small, considering that it has dual drivers inside, is really impressive as well. The design to me has a very just like steampunk, like futuristic look to it. I like the design a lot. Now the cable that comes on this is more or less like a spiral rubber, and now it does have the ear hooks, but the ear hooks on these are extremely flexible, where a lot of the ear hooks are fairly stiff and becomes uncomfortable after time. These have a lot of give, which basically caused me to be able to wear them for a long period of time, and it never got uncomfortable. These do have the 2-pin connectors that connect into the monitors themselves, and then it has the angled plug to plug into your device. Now speaking of that, the difference between plugging these into a device as to where plugging them into an amp is the impedance level is only 16 ohms. So this can easily plug straight into your phone or laptop or tablet or whatever, and you don't need an amp. But you do get a completely different sound signature if you plug them into an amp. But we're gonna start with the sound just like it is if you're plugging it into your phone. The first thing you're gonna notice is it's actually very airy, especially with the bass, and that's the one thing that kind of gave this the characteristic of an open back headphone. The bass didn't feel like it was congested, it didn't feel like it was more in your face, it felt like it was more at a distance, but still had the presence of being near. It's so hard to explain. Bass is usually not necessarily distorted, but you either get a muffled bass or you get something that just kind of hits the other two frequencies. This one had separation from the other frequencies, which obviously having a 12mm driver handling just the bass is gonna do that. But the balanced armature, the way that it brings in the mids and the highs, make these monitors so clean and crisp, but with a lot of punch. It's rare to find one, at least for me, to have one that has very nice balance. But going back to that openness that I was talking about and it acting as like a bass reflex port. You know, when you have the bigger speakers and the bass reflex port is basically adding some air or letting air travel through, it's giving you more presence of bass. And it's weird that they're able to do that in these monitors. Now vocals on these, the best way to explain it is they're just extremely forward. Like vocals, whether it be male or female, was always up front. It never felt buried. Again, you could have a genre of music where tons of things are going on in the background. And what these are able to do is give you this sound imaging to feel like you can tell where everything's coming from. So if a vocalist is singing maybe even off to this side, you would be able to tell that's where it's coming from. If you're hearing an acoustic guitar, you can actually hear the strumming of the strings or picking. Every little detail is what these are picking up. Now, if you EQ these, it basically opens them up to sound however you want to. I've rarely seen a pair that you can EQ and it EQs perfectly. Like usually if you start to bump up the bass, you start to get distortion or you start to just get a muffled sound or it just can't handle it past a certain point. These were able to just handle every little tweak in the EQ that I was doing. And it just morphed into sounding extremely clear if I wanted to, or extremely bass heavy if I wanted to. But the important thing was it just sounded however I wanted it to. And I have an issue with that with a lot of earbuds, and I just didn't have it with these at all. As far as cons go, I would have liked to have seen maybe a little pouch or a case, maybe just a slightly longer cable. It's about 4 feet, so if you're using it at your desktop plugged into an amp, you really don't have a whole lot of room to move around. Another thing is, these do leak a lot of sound, and that's because of that opening on the outside of the earbud. So it is coming from a company I've never heard of. I'm always kind of iffy about trying out products from new companies because you never really know what you're getting into, and I was completely surprised. I can't believe it's under 50 bucks. So guys, that's my video on the Revo Nex NEX 202s. I highly recommend them. I think for under $50, it's gonna be hard to find something better than these. But guys, thank you so much for checking out this video. Thank you so much for checking out all the other videos. And as always, make sure to stay tuned for more.